Okay. It looks like we are live and monitoring myself. How is everyone today? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and for today's brief live stream, we're going to be talking about how to record your voice directly into Premiere Pro or Adobe Audition. And I'm going to show you just a couple of the different ways that you can do it in each of the apps directly in Premiere Pro's case, right into the timeline, and then Audition either working in the edit view or mono or two-channel view, as opposed to working in the multi-track view. And there's a couple different setup things to be aware of when you're doing that. Also, depending upon whether you're working with, say, a USB microphone or you have a sound device that has multiple inputs, you'll want to be aware of how to set those things as well so that you have your tracks and everything set up properly. As always, it's wonderful to see all of you again, to be back on the regular streams. We're coming to you live on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, Behance, and YouTube. So hey, Desiree, how's it going? Mohammed Mustafa, great to see you. Vorteza, Michael Westcott, Marlando West, Keith Owen, what is up? Vahan Satoyan, how are you doing? So lovely to see all of you here. Always great to be back on the stream. Gilbert Tang, Akeem Akintola, hello. Stephanie Chavez, good afternoon. Lovely to see you. Okay, so I want to keep this one kind of short today. Get right to it. Get to the point. Little New Year's resolution for myself to keep these a little shorter and tighter. And as always, I will answer the questions at the end, all right? So we're going to keep this one super short because it's a single topic and it's pretty easy. And I think you'll kind of get the gist once I show you. All right. So we're going to start in Premiere Pro. I've cut together a couple little clips here. I've got some San Francisco skylines. Got some Alaska in here as well. I think there might even be some Phoenix if I'm not mistaken. And I want to do some voiceover with this content. Okay. So real easily, we can record directly right into the timeline here. Now, there's two different ways to do it in Premiere, but there's a couple things that you want to be aware of both in Premiere and Audition. I just want to show you them real quickly. Now, for many of you, especially if you're working in a in a more sort of professional environment or post-production environment where you probably have different sound devices connected, even if you don't, you just want to make sure that whatever you're recording with is the device that you have selected. A lot of times you might be monitoring through one sound device, maybe you're monitoring through internal speakers, but you want to record with something else. So of course in Premiere Pro, we're going to go up to our Preferences menu, Audio Hardware. If you're on the PC, that'll be under the Edit menu, under Preferences. And in this case, when I go into Hardware, you'll see that I have my device selections here. So here's my built-in for the iMac that I'm working on. I'm working off of a Focusrite Claret 8. So this is the device that I'm going to use. Also have my, one of these webcams has audio input as well. So you just want to be sure that you're choosing the right input for whatever it is you're going to be recording. Default output, in this case, same device. Master clock should be clocked to the main input device as well. And then you have your buffer size here. Now, while this won't necessarily matter if you're not monitoring yourself, if you are monitoring yourself, meaning that you're hearing like you're in headphones, hearing back what you're recording, you're going to want to get this down as small or as low as possible. On Mac, it represents the value in samples. In Windows, we show it in milliseconds. I believe the default is about 512 samples, and that's okay. You might get a little bit of a slapback when you're monitoring yourself. So again, if you're not having to monitor yourself, this isn't really an issue. The key here is that sometimes, particularly with audio, if your machine is having trouble keeping up during the recording, the higher your buffer size, it's just like, it's a buffer like in YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere else. It buffers up or pads the beginning so that you can record seamlessly without dropouts and without issues. So if you're having trouble recording and playing back, you want to raise that buffer size. The only issue is that in terms of monitoring yourself, the greater the buffer, the more you might hear yourself kind of repeat in your headphones. That also has to do with the type of sound device you're using. If you're using an internal sound card, usually not the case. With external ones, depending upon if they have zero latency monitoring or not, or how that monitoring happens, you may still incur some echo. So the key is you want to keep it as low as possible. I'll typically go around 128, 256 just in general kind of plays back smoothly, especially if I'm working with 4K video content. So these are kind of the sweet spots. If you can get all the way down to 16 and you don't have any dropouts or clicks or problems, do it. That's pretty low. I don't typically get great success running it in any app having latency I/O buffers that low, okay? But 256, 128, you're in good hands. 512, also pretty good, but just keep in mind if you hear that echo, it's not a problem. It's just kind of part of the design of a longer or larger buffer size. Okay, so once you've got the device selected, I'm going to click OK here. Now, you can do this either from the audio track mixer or directly inside the timeline. I'm going to show you first with the track mixer. So this is a little bit more complicated because I have a multi-input device, which means that I have to select the individual input of this microphone. So I'm going to twirl down this little triangle up at the top left here, show, hide, effects, and sends. And when I do that, it's now going to reveal the track input channels. Now again, this is an 18 input device here. So I want to do this on track 4, let's say. Now if I click on the down arrow for Focusrite, this is showing me all of the inputs. Now this actually brings up a great question because you'll see it's showing me pairs. Input 1, input 2, input 2, input 3, input 3, input 4. That's great. That probably means that we're recording into a stereo track, and we are. Now here's the thing. One microphone, one voice, one sound, mono, one track. The default for most of your sessions is probably stereo. And if you have a multi-input device like I have here, it's wanting you to record in pairs. Now that's not to say that you can't record the same thing in both channels, but because this mic, which is an XLR condenser mic, is fed into input channel 6, there is only signal coming in on channel 6, which means that if I choose input 6/input 7, one channel will have audio, the other will be blank. This is not what I want. I'm going to show you real quickly what that looks like and how that happens, okay? So to enable recording, we're going to click on the R button here inside of the track. Also, not a bad idea. Let's go ahead and give it a name. We'll call this VOS for stereo. All right, click on R. Yep, you can see all those controls there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click the record button here. And when you're ready to actually roll, you're going to click on the play button, or you can also hit the space bar. And let's go ahead and do that. And then we can start narrating like this. Ah, beautiful San Francisco, sunset, illumination, Seward, Alaska, dark, blue, sandy, Willow, Alaska, clear blue water rushing free. And then driving into Willow, such a lovely sight, dirt roads and beautiful trees. Okay, so now what you'll see is if we go ahead and expand track 4 down here, I'm just going to globally make these a little bit wider. All right, so you can see them a little bit better. Sorry about that. What you can now clearly see is it's exactly what I described to you. You've got audio on one channel and nothing on the other. So this is not ideal, and I see this happen all the time. Now, like I said, with certain USB mics and other things, they might automatically be seen as stereo devices, which means that they may populate that same mono signal in both channels. And that's fine. To be honest, I'm a big believer in if it's a single source, single channel, just do it in mono. There's no reason to have two channels of the same material. I mean, again, if your production people like working with stereo files and they want everything stereo, that's fine. Outside of that request, if it's a mono signal, it should be a single channel mono file. It's just going to be easier to process and work with. You're not going to have to worry about other issues ever. So if we just were to play this back right now. Ah, beautiful San Francisco, sunset, illumination, Seward, Alaska, dark. All right, you get enough of that. It's audio on one side. Now, yes, there's an effect, I believe, in our mixer here. I think it's under the channel section. Channel mixer. And you can fill left with right if we go into the edit menu here, or fill right with left. Yeah, so we can fill the right with the left. I believe that, yeah, there's signal in the left side. So we can do that. And if we play it back now, blue, sandy, Willow, Alaska. Okay, you're getting it in both channels. But, and there's nothing wrong with that. The other thing, too, is that depending upon the type of mic and the input chain and everything else, that second channel, even though there was no input, there could be some random noise in there. There could be something else. In any case, while this technique is fine, like I said, this can all be eliminated if you just record it from the start with a mono track. Single input, single track, okay? So if I were to right click in my track header space here and choose add tracks, 0 for video tracks, 1 audio track, let's place it after VOS and let's do mono, okay? Like that. Click OK. All right, and that's going to be track 5 now. Down here, expand this a little bit as well. Let's name this, call it VO_M, all right? And same thing, hit record. Let's wind this back. Record button. Let's mute the other one so we don't hear it. Hit play. Oh, and of course we have to select our input. So now when I select the input, what you'll see is that these all show up as a mono stack. So this is what you want to see, right? Single input channel, single input, single track. Makes sense. So I'm going to choose input 6 because I know that's the one it's on. Hit play. Ah, San Francisco, so lovely, so majestic, such a beautiful sunset. We have Seward, Alaska in the summer. It was beautiful and hot, and the dark gray sandy beach was magnificent, coupled with willow with warm running water, hottest summer in Alaska ever. Okay? Now, as you can see, wind it back, take it out of record mode. We've got our single channel here, right? Mono, easy to work with. Apply effects to it, do what you want, take a quick listen. Ah, San Francisco, so lovely, so majestic, such a beautiful sunset. Okay, we have Seward, Alaska in the summer. It was beautiful. Real simple. All right. Now, you may have noticed, however, that with that method of recording, it immediately goes into record. So what if you want a bit of a countdown, which is kind of standard, not just for ADR, but for other things? Well, you can do that as well by leveraging the little recording voiceover icon inside of the track header. Now, if you don't see that here, I think that's actually enabled by default. You can customize the audio header, and that's by clicking on that little wrench menu right here. All right, go to Customize Audio Header, and then all you need to do is drag the voiceover icon down into the audio track header, if it's not already there. I think it's actually on by default. And it must be because I just updated Premiere and I'm pretty sure I'd taken it out and somehow it came back. So if you want that there, you just drag it right into the track. Now what's awesome about this is when you do this, all you have to do is click on your voiceover record. In fact, here, so let's take this one out of here. We'll stay on this mono track 5. Okay, make sure we're still in input 6. Go ahead and click on voiceover record. And what you notice, you get a countdown. And now it automatically goes into recording. So you get your 3, 2, 1 countdown. It starts recording right away. You can stop. You see it already recorded what I have. If we want to continue, I can click it again. Countdown. It's 3, 2, 1. Right away. You hear what you already said, and now we continue going. So this is not only great for ADR in Premiere, but it just allows you to be a bit more flexible, you know, especially if, again, if you're monitoring yourself, you want to hear the take that you just did. You'll hear the 3 seconds before, and then it'll go into record. So I love doing it this way if I'm recording direct to picture in Premiere, because then what you're seeing is exactly, you just know where you are in time. Having that little countdown is really nice. Sonically, there's no difference. It's just a matter of having that countdown when you use that voiceover icon, okay? So that's it. Again, we could play this back. And now it automatically goes into recording. So you get your 3, 2, 1 countdown. It starts recording right away, what you already said, and now we continue going. All right, you heard that second piece there when I was still talking. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and segue over to Audition. Now, Audition, much like Premiere, very similar, kinda, but you have other things to consider when recording voice, all right? So let's, in this case now, go up to Audition's Preferences menu, under Audio Hardware. Okay, so this dialog looks exactly the same, right? And it is. You've got your inputs here. Again, focus right, focus right, focus right. I/O buffer, let's bring this down to 256. But I want to go into audio channel mapping. Now, the reason for this is that you can map what input you specifically use if you want to record in what this is called above the edit view or the waveform view, the single channel view, okay? So because I'm on a multi-input device, what's awesome about the way that we've structured this is that if I want to be able to record just a mono single track in the waveform view, meaning I don't want to set up a multi-track session, I don't need that, I can tell it exactly what input I want to use as my left, or as left is typically the mono input for recordings, and this is standard on mixers and everything else and tape machines. I'm going to choose input 6 to be used as the mono input. Now, if I were to record stereo, right now it'll be taking input 6 and input 2. Again, typically you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you can customize this any way you want. So like I just did a bunch of voiceovers for a customer of ours. I record directly into the waveform view. I'm using input 6 as mono. It does it automatically. If I had 2 microphones and wanted to record a stereo signal, or just wanted to record stereo in general from 2 inputs on this device, I can set those independently. Nothing else needs to be changed here. This is specific to that 2-channel waveform view. So we'll click OK on that. So to record a mono voiceover in the waveform view, I'm simply going to go up to the File menu, New Audio File, and we'll call this VOM Today. Choose your sample rate. Again, in this case, we'll keep it at 48K, assuming we're going back to video. Channels is going to be mono, and then bit depth we will leave at the highest, which is 32-bit float. This is going to give us, of course, the highest quality uncompressed wave file. This will allow us to process it with fewer artifacts. It's just what you want to do. If you're just giving something to be delivered directly, you can record in 16-bit. You can record in 24-bit, but pretty much everybody accepts 32-bit float at this point. So unless you hear otherwise, record at 32-bit float and convert if you have to after the fact. Click OK. And then here now we have a couple of different options. So if you right-click on the record button, you'll see that you have instant record mode, punch and roll mode, and timed record mode. Punch and roll is something that you would use in the multi-track side, specifically for ADR. Now, we won't cover that today, but I just wanted to point out the different options that you have. For this, we're going to go into instant record. So much like Premiere's mixer controls, when I click the record button here, we're rolling. And what I love about this is you've got the real-time waveform display. This is actually how I record interviews. I always bring Audition, and I bring one of several different external audio devices and microphones, and I have either myself or my engineer monitor the inputs live. Yes, you can see meters on a Zoom device or on a Tascam device or on a Key Pro or whatever. I love seeing the waveform. This tells me so much. Also, I have the ability to run real-time frequency analysis. I've also got the ability to run real-time phase analysis. Now, of course, recording single-track mono, so this is not an issue. But if you're recording stereo signals or multiple microphones simultaneously, it can be really helpful to have the real-time phase running. Go ahead and hit stop. Again, I can play this back now. We're rolling. And what I love about this is you've got the real-time waveform display. Make it a little louder. This is actually how I record interviews. I always bring Audition, and I bring one of several different... okay, so that's it. Really simple. Now, what if you wanted to record into the multi-track and you want to do different inputs for everything? Okay, it's also very simple. Let's go up to our File, New Multi-Track Session, and we'll call this VOs. Give it a place to save it, and let's just make a new folder on the desktop. Call this VO stuff, choose, no template needed for this, 48K, 32-bit. Now, this just means the master fader, meaning that it's a stereo, a stereo mix. You can still record things mono or pan them however you like. You're not typically going to have a mono session master, but you absolutely can, or 5.1 for that matter. Let's go ahead and click OK. Now we're in the new session. So now we just need to choose the input that we want for the specific track. So let's come up to track 1. Call this voiceover up here. And then you have your input and your output. And by the way, you want to be in this input and output tab. This is the default tab up here at the top left. This is also your effects inserts, your sends, and your on-track EQ. So under inputs, again, I'm going to click on the twirl out here, and you'll see that Audition automatically makes it easy for you by breaking it out as mono or stereo. Now, just like Premiere, the tracks by default are stereo. You can still have mono recordings in a stereo track. Typically, to keep everything clean and easy, I would actually make a new mono track, to be honest with you. So you can do that by coming up to the Multitrack menu, Tracks, and choose Add Mono Audio Track at the top here. And that just makes it even easier. Again, you can record mono into a stereo track. It gets a little weird when you start processing, because if you use stereo effects on a mono file, weird things, but a stereo track, weird things can happen, or vice versa if you use a mono effect on a stereo track. It's much more confusing with audio mixing than it is with VoiceOver for video. So, like I said, if you're doing a single input device, make a mono track and choose a mono input. So we're going to do it on this one instead. VoiceOver, default input here is going to be mono, input 6, arm it for recording. You can see our levels right away, which is really nice. And just go ahead and click the record button. So unlike in Premiere, you don't have to put it into like record ready and then hit play. It'll just go into recording immediately. And once again, you can see the waveform here. Makes it really simple, really nice, really easy. Wind back, increase the volume, hit play. It'll just go into recording immediately. And once again, you can see the waveform here. Makes it really simple, really nice. Okay? And that's it. All right? So, recording in the multitrack view. Again, if you're going to be recording voice and your microphone is seen as a mono single channel input, do it. Now, by the way, just as I pointed out, though, let's say we wanted to record into that stereo track. You weren't thinking about it. I'll set a mono input, 6, wind back, hit record. This is now me recording a mono audio file into a stereo track. Totally fine, right? The track itself is stereo, but the file that it's creating is mono because we're going from a mono input, and Audition knows that. This is now me recording a mono. Even if we double click on this, right, it didn't just display the left channel and the right channel is playing. It made a mono file because we told it we're going through a mono input, even though the track itself is stereo. Think of the track as kind of your container. You can throw stereo audio in there, mono audio in there. It doesn't care. It'll play back whatever. It's the input device selection that determines whether it creates a mono file, or stereo file. All right? But real simply, recording in multitrack, recording in the waveform view. Again, you've got live monitoring. By the way, if you want to monitor in multitrack, this depends on the type of sound device you have. This is for monitoring through Audition, all right? But a lot of times your mixers for your devices, like this Focusrite, this allows no latency direct monitoring. So I don't even need to click the I to monitor through Audition. I can do it here. And we have what we call automatic delay compensation. Because of that delay with the buffer, it'll automatically keep things in sync. It's not a worry. It works wonderfully. All right. So recording in waveform and multitrack view, recording in Premiere Pro via the mixer with the standard controls, or simply using the VoiceOver record button, giving you your little countdown there. Makes it real simple and easy. Awesome to do. Of course, you can also record VoiceOver directly in Adobe Premiere Rush, either on the phone or the iPad or on the desktop as well. So a lot of different options there for recording your voice. And with that, let's go ahead and check the chats, see if we've got any questions here. What's up? Marcio, Donald Ping, Ray Acosta, nice to see you. All right. What's up, Pierre Julien? Tim, how are you? Howard? All right. Howard's saying on Behance, yeah, it's the worst when you forget to change the input and end up recording from your webcam. Been there too, my friend. Always essential. Always need to check that input device, right? All right, and then coming to us on Facebook, let's see. All right. What's up? El Gallo Giro, nice to see you. Sparky Sorensen, it's been a long time. Antonia Foglea, Bruce Arvston, cool to see you too. Trax Fathalo, all right. All right. K Gossing, Bonnie Maltodi. What's his YouTube channel name? Ah, yes, I'll put it in the chat right now. It is Jason Levine Video. Eric Van Norden, hello. Goes Janssen, hello. Wahabi, nice to see you. Stephanie Reed, always editing. 5 to 7 commercials today with a new show reel for 2020. That's awesome. Would love to see a link of that if you want to share that at some point. Bonjour, Jimmy Pichard. Shasha from Malaysia, how are you? Great to see you. All right, Wintry Psyche, nice to see you as well. All right. Dennis, 16 inputs is enough. So right. All right. Mohammed, would you please make a new live tutorial about making old recordings sound clear? Sure. In fact, this is actually worth pointing out. I was talking with a friend earlier today, and I mentioned that, yes, in fact, I'm going to be redoing the entire Audio 101 series. It occurred to me that it's about 4.5, almost 5 years old now. And while all the info is still valid, it was in the early days of our streaming, so it doesn't look as good. I mean, it sounds fine. And it's branded with Twitch branding, and and also I look different, so it's probably worth revisiting. So yes, Mohammed, I am going to do that. I don't know if I'll get to it this week, but next week for sure, I can do that. Dennis, I prefer a real audio DAW for this. Yes, and that's the thing. That's why I showed doing it both in Audition and Premiere. Frankly, I very seldom have ever recorded my voiceover directly into Premiere, unless I was just out of time and didn't, I needed to do it right then and there. I mean, it's okay, it's fine, but I'm with you, Dennis. I like to record my audio stuff in my audio app, which is Audition, and then bring it into Premiere, or dynamically link it from Premiere, do the voiceover, and then just send it back to Premiere to do all the finishing. So whatever you feel most comfortable doing. All right. Daniel Lewis, hello. Stuart Clark, hair is looking as strong as ever. Yeah, thank you very much. Trying to keep it. Demetrius Davis, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, my friend. Very cool. Hugo Vega, good to know that Audition knows to output mono audio track if you create a stereo multitrack. Yes. And again, it's the file that it creates, right? So track and file. The track can be mono, stereo, whatever. In this case, we had a stereo track, but by choosing the mono input, it knows, okay, we're going to create a mono file. And that's really key. And I love that it does that too. Bouchard Damian. All right. Hey, from Thunder Bay. Maki Sasakata from Poland. Nice to see you. Andre Ramos. Hello again from Brazil. Demetrius Davis. What can we do about making DVDs? Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you there. I would have told you in the past, of course, to access Encore, but now that we no longer offer access to CS6, kind of out of luck there. And I'll be truthful, I don't even know what the most common, I guess CD toaster or whatever, are they still around? Yeah, I'm sorry that we don't have a current solution for that anymore, Demetrius. I know it's a drag because there are still many who are making them. All right. What shampoo am I using? Get out. Pantene. And something else called Enjoy, actually. It's a salon brand. Murat, hello. Hugo Vega, you're very welcome. Okay, and no questions up on Periscope? Not today. No more over there. Any more on the tubes? Archive Pete from Belfast, what's going on? Kamal, how are you? Danny Pretorius, thank you. Paul K. Bisson, great stuff. Thank you very much. Squire Player. I mix a Yeti with an Audio Technica mic while recording podcasts. I have to make sure that the project is set to 48K, otherwise the Yeti won't work. I set up an aggregate. Yes, the level on the ATR mic is a lot lower than the Yeti. I don't know if it's in the preamp in the MacBook. Squire Player, so this is actually a great series of comments there. So USB microphones, I was talking about those before, and I'm assuming you're using the USB Yeti. Do they make an XLR? I don't know. A lot of those USB mics though require a specific sample rate, which is generally 48K. So that's legit. You can set up the aggregate device on the Mac, so that it'll compile all inputs going to the same aggregate input. I used to do this when we would stream over OBS and such, or when I was recording without an external device. So glad that you've got that going. But yes, as you point out, you don't have as much level control. Now, there are some level controls in the, the audio MIDI preference, whatever that dialog is, where you can set and create the aggregate devices. You do have some level control there, and you can boost it. It's a bit dirty, though. It's not super clean. So yeah, it is the native input on the MacBook. It's the same with using any of the native 1/8" mini plug inputs on any laptop or desktop machine. The inputs are just they're not super high high SPL nor high range inputs, and you usually have to tweak them after the fact because there's usually quite a bit of a difference with between a Yeti and something else. Or it could be the Yeti's lower and the Audio-Technica's higher. I feel your pain. Also, by creating that aggregate device, I noticed that a lot of times there's sort of a default, a general drop in the overall amplitude of that device, and maybe they do that as a fail-safe to prevent clipping from having multiple inputs feed a single aggregate source. Could be, but I've noticed the same thing, and so yeah, I mean, what you're doing is correct. Again, I would probably not mess about with the input sliders in that audio MIDI panel all that much, and do the adjustments on the Audition side after you record. It's just going to be a little bit cleaner. All right. We enjoy audio and hair tips. Who could ask for more? Ah, it's great to see you. Squire, yes, they are the USB mics. Okay, yeah. So, it's not uncommon. And again, if you were using the single device in Audition, sans the aggregate device that you make, I imagine the level is maybe a little hotter, a little more consistent. Having said that, too, I also know specifically with the Yeti, at least I've heard it. I've never owned a Yeti. We have one in the studio in San Francisco. That its record level is a little bit lower. In fact, most of the USB mics that I've encountered, unless they have an onboard level control, which is not preferable to be honest with you, but they tend to be a little quieter. But if you're in a quiet environment, hopefully you've got enough room there that you can boost it without boosting up a ton of external noise or hiss or digital artifacts. So, but you're doing it totally right, and that's absolutely the way to play it. Kimal, the color you made in Premiere is not the same as the export color. Why? Okay, this is a bit off topic, Kamal, but because you were so kind to ask that question real quickly, and I think, let's see, I'm just going to see any more questions. All right. I'll show you real fast why your colors may not be the same. It could be, if you're using the current version of Premiere, that you do not have your display preferences, color management display preferences enabled. So in Premiere Pro's preferences, there is a checkbox. There's quite a few new checkboxes you might also see. Display color management requires GPU acceleration. So what this does is this figures out the type of display that you're working on and effectively applies a color profile so that what you're seeing in the program monitor and on the Lumetri scopes is the same. And effectively then what you're seeing on the monitor, what you're seeing in the scopes, and what you export should also be the same. Now that's not without some caveats there, because of course if you're going to a very compressed H.264 or something like that, the colors will not be identical from the master in Premiere because you're compressing it, right? So there will be potentially some loss of saturation, or in some cases an increase of the appearance of certain colors based on the bit rate that you're exporting to. Now, if you're going to something like a ProRes 422HQ or DNxHR, you shouldn't see any difference, all right? But I'm guessing that may be the case. Now, again, you have to have GPU acceleration to do this, but just to kind of show you here, if you take a look, I don't know how dramatic it'll be with this shot, but if I turn off display color management and click OK, oh yeah, you just saw that you just had this contrast shift. This suddenly got a lot brighter. So with that off now, I'm being deceived by looking at this because that shot isn't actually that bright. So I might adjust the exposure and make it darker only to upload to YouTube and go, hey, the shot looks dark. So having that display color management on is essential for just ensuring that you're getting the right colors, okay? Someone's coming to us on Periscope. What problems can I encounter when using fill left with right on a mono track? Yeah, so in general, none. It's just, again, I've had issues where if you record into a stereo container, but you only have signal on one channel, again, depending upon the kind of signal chain you have in terms of your audio chain, there can be noise and other artifacts that get left behind in both channels. So when you do the fill, if you've got some kind of weird noise on the channel where the good audio is, well, that's now replicated in both. So, or sometimes it's just like weird bleed issues that I've encountered. You shouldn't theoretically, but again, if there's any sonic anomalies in the channel that you're basically filling with, they're going to be replicated. They're going to be duplicated. So, if anything, the other option for that would be, where is it? Under clip? Yeah. So I would most likely then take something here. Do I have a stereo file in here? I'm just trying to I don't have any stereo. Did I record all of these as mono? Where's the stereo one? Okay. It's okay. I don't have to need it selected to show you. So in lieu of using a fill, I will typically use, under the clip menu, audio options, breakout to mono, and just separate it. So then you've got just a discrete, clean mono file. I just prefer it. I don't like seeing audio on one side and emptiness on the other. And, any opportunity to not have to use effects that just aren't necessary, I'm all for that. Again, there's no real reason not to necessarily. I'm also, frankly, I question sometimes sonically what this channel mixer does to some of the audio. And that has to do with some of the dithering things that we're doing on Mixdown. That doesn't really apply to this, but So in theory, not an issue. If you've got a good clean signal, you can fill it and you're good to go. It's more of an issue where, again, I've seen it where, especially if you're recording, like you got audio coming from a DSLR or mirrorless camera, you have an input plugged into channel 1, but nothing in channel 2. Notoriously, I've seen from DSLRs and mirrorless where both channels, when you've only got one thing plugged in, or maybe different mics, and one mic has no audio, whatever, weird stuff happens. And again, your camera mics, your camera devices are recording likely at 16-bit, so it's not super clean to begin with. And then you can run into problems when you do the fill. All right, that was a great question. Okay, very good engagement today. All right, one last look over at Facebook. Namaste, Yogarshi Pratap Singh from India. Very nice to see you. All right. Thank you, Liam. Larry Panna Jr. Can anyone suggest an appropriate mic to purchase for a PC? If you're talking about USB mics, I always recommend you gotta listen to them. It's a Harry Potter line that I quote all the time, but much like the wand choosing the wizard, the mic chooses the voiceover person, the voiceover artist. Frankly, Yetis to me on my voice, they're very bright, very brittle, very crispy. It's not good. This, which is a proper large diaphragm condenser, it's Audio-Technica 4050, sounds wonderful. Full-bodied, rich, bright, bassy, all of the above, but not too much. You just have to test them out. People love the Blue series of microphones, the Yeti and the Snowball and all of those. Samson makes a whole bunch of them. Apogee makes some really great ones. My colleague Terry White is a huge fan of the Apogee 96K USB mics. Those happen to sound pretty great on anybody. They're a little expensive, but they're wonderful. And they're standard USB, so they're driverless, Larry. It just works great. All right, Murat, how can I make the audio in one track have the same level from the beginning to the end, especially when I have two speakers talking in one mic? Is there an effect for this? Yes, so for that, you would use a compressor limiter. And we don't have time to cover that today, but if you go to my YouTube channel under Audio 101, I have episode 8 is all about how to use a compressor, and episode 9 is all about a limiter, and I show you how to use it on voice. That is the effect, compression and or limiting, that you would use, Murat, to balance the levels of speakers on one channel. All right? Tony Dong, nice to see you. Okay, so until next time, everyone, thank you so much for joining. I'll be back tomorrow, streaming to you live on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, and Behance. Until then, have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.